Welcome, one and all, to yet another community watch party for the Pantheon developer stream, and what is actually going to be the last community watch party, this is in my way, of 2020. Can you believe it? We're at the end of 2020 already. It's December. I was feeling in the Christmas spirit tonight, so we're gonna have a good time tonight. This is, I just looked just before I went live. I went on my YouTube channel. This is the 17th community watch party that we have done so far, which I think is pretty cool. And I'm always super grateful for each and every one of you that joins me. I know, again, you have a choice. It sounds like an airline, you know, when you get on, you get off an airplane or something. We know you have your choice in airlines, and we thank you for flying with BazgrimTV. You know, I know that you very well could watch the stream in the Visionary Realms Twitch channel, but you make the decision to come hang out with me instead in our little tight-knit group here, and I think that's really cool. I always have a great time doing this. For those of you that do watch these regularly, it's always such a great time seeing the familiar faces in chat here, and you may also realize that we are at the beginning of the month now. It's December 3rd. Normally these happen on the last Thursday of every month, but then of course, because we just celebrated Thanksgiving here in the US last week, when they were normally planning on having the stream, it then got pushed to this week. So now we're at the beginning of the month, and in the last producer's letter, they actually said that moving forward, as we move into 2021, they're actually going to be keeping these developer streams toward the beginning of the month rather than the end of the month. And personally, I think that makes a bit more sense, because the VIPs have the developer roundtables on the last Friday of every month, and I don't believe that's going to be changing, if I remember correctly. So sometimes it would be you kind of get hit with a lot of information at once, where you have like the newsletter stream on the last Thursday of the month, and then the day after the last Friday of the month you get the roundtable. So this kind of spreads things out a little bit. We get to pace ourselves with our doses of Pantheon a little bit, so that should be good. But I just want to give you a heads up, moving forward. I know I'm kind of expecting a little bit of a smaller crowd tonight, because this is not the normal schedule. I know I saw some of you guys we were hanging out before the stream even started. You know, you didn't even know that the stream was happening tonight until you saw my go live notification. So I'm sure there are a lot of other people that are that way as well. So I think it's just going to be nice and quiet, hanging out, chilling tonight. But then definitely mark your calendars moving forward for the beginning of the month to have more of these. Yeah, so for the show tonight, just saw Kaiser Dragon just joined. He said, I just saw the tweet from Pantheon, so here I am. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people that can relate to that. The stream tonight, if you did see their tweets or any of their teasers for the stream tonight, we're going to be hearing from Jared Pullen, who is one of their only concept artist, and he is going to be doing what he calls a monster jam. Now, this is something that I've seen him do before, but it's been a long time, and I really only remember him doing it on the forums. Like, he did it in text on the official forums a while ago. He would jump in and share some concept art that he's been working on, and in particular with Monster Jam, it's the NPCs, it's the creatures that inhabit the world that he is working on designing the art for, and talking a little bit about them and that process that he goes through. And I always really enjoyed, he's such an entertaining one to listen to, because he's so like unbelievably passionate about what he does. You can tell he loves his job, which, I mean, who wouldn't? He just sits around all days and just draws fantasy characters and stuff like that, which is amazing. He does a really good job with it. So That's the only thing I can think of that for sure we'll see tonight. Hopefully there's a few other things, but I mean, who doesn't love talking about the monsters that will be killing in Terminus? So we got that to look forward to. Neos245 says, I hope to see some more gameplay. I hope so too. Why not? Kalox says gas bats. Yeah, that was... Yeah, that I'm hoping to not see again. I'm just gonna put it out there. That was a while ago. That was in a co-stream actually. That was in that stream with Co-Carnage where like he was talking about the UI because Jared also does the concept for the UI art. And then he like pulled that gas bat, which presumably is another one of the NPCs that he created. But that just came out of nowhere. But that like, man, my eardrums were like bleeding. That was so loud. Just random. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls more nonsense like that, because like I say, he's just a crazy dude. But me personally kind of have my fingers crossed that it's it's a little more low-key than that. It was a Thorn Deep. It was a great moment. I got to give him that. But yeah, it was the audio. Maybe if just the audio was more balanced. It was just the whole like abruptness of it all. And it was like, you know, obviously I'm a headphones user. And so when the audio is not balanced, it's like you really notice it's particularly sensitive. And that I pretty much like peed my pants when that happened, and not in a good way. Is there a good way to pee your pants? Never mind. Got your ears blasted off? Yeah, definitely. They were ringing. we got 1 minute left. 1 minute before they go live. I'm gonna refresh their Twitch page to see, am I missing anything? Oh, it is very soon. Very soon. I'm just gonna watch this ad so that you don't have to. Naos245 says you're not cool unless you pee your pants. There you go. I agree. Come on, is this ad gonna finish before they start? It does. Oh wait, is this? No, this is the last. No, it was auto playing last month's stream. It says they're still offline. Oh no, they just went live. Things are happening. Things are happening. Watch now. Hey Hoye, are they starting yet? I think they just started 15 seconds ago. I'm getting the music now. We're just gonna jump right over into it. Grizzly says, hey Baz, just checking to see if your beard makes any progress. Very slow progress. Very slowly. I'm not quite... I know I got the Santa hat yet, but I got a long way to go to get that beard. Yeah, you know, there's some... I'm gonna claim that the lighting does weird things to my facial hair, because it looks thinner in camera than it is in real life. But yeah, I know. Not the most impressive.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show tonight. We have a full show for you tonight. Pantheon, MMO.com, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen stream, December 3rd, 2020. Tonight we start off with a Monster Jam with Jared Pullen, and then later on we spy on an internal testing session by the devs, and then we'll follow that up with patch notes.
There you go. That sounds like gameplay.
We're gonna have a full stream tonight. But before we begin, just wanted to send out a reminder to all of our pre-alpha testers that there is another pre-alpha weekend this weekend. This weekend we'll be focusing on class feedback and class gameplay, and the classes available again, once again, are going to be the Dire Lord, the Shaman, the Rogue, and the Enchanter.
And the Wizard.
And the Wizard.
It's gonna be a fun one.
And the Wizard, of course, the Wizard. So, if you're a pre-alpha tester and you haven't received your confirmed time slot and realm selection, please contact support by going to pantheonmmo.com/support. And if you're not a pre-alpha tester, Head over to pantheonmmo.com, hit the pledge button, and pledge to become a pre-alpha tester. Those are in our VIP pledges. So before we get started today, what are we going to start with? Dave, what do we have coming up?
I honestly, I'm not sure. Jared was supposed to send me something, and he was working with some monsters down in the basement. I don't. Oh wait, hang on a second. Do you hear that? I think I hear something.
I had to take my headphones off. At least I saw it coming this time.
Okay, septic scratching talons, check. Stupid vacant expression, check. Throaty bloaty glands, check. Straining lint. Oh, hey guys! It's awesome to see you here. I was engaging.
I'm glad to hear that, Jace, but I was taking no chances.
No, seriously, and all jokes
I'm gonna turn him up a little bit, actually.
It's really good to have you here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through a little bit of the creation process on how we go about creating creatures and characters and all that sort of jazz for this wonderful game that you guys are helping. VR's Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. So by now you would be familiar with the gas bat, or as I called him, the BGB, the buoyant gas bat. It's funny how this guy came about, actually, because when Justin, Chris and I were doing our jam sessions and working with Forrest a long time ago, I would always make jokes about a BGB, this strange bloated creature that would just sort of drift in chittering swarms across the landscape of Terminus and cause a septic problem for players. And I always thought it was just a bit of an in-joke, and one day I was in between tasks and decided, well, I'm a creature designer by trade and by nature. I actually didn't start as an environmental artist. I started as a creature designer. And when I came on board to VR, I started actually doing a little bit of everything, mainly the environmental side. But I was in between tasks, as I say, and the BGB, the buoyant gas bat, was born. Now, you're pretty familiar with this guy, but this was just to give the game a bit of an unofficial mascot, have a bit of fun with it. And, you know, we play things pretty much straight down the middle. And a lot of our foes are quite serious and quite deadly and quite dangerous. So I just thought it'd be nice to have a bit of tongue-in-cheek, candid humour, just to offset the seriousness of things and add a dynamic of humorous danger as well. And what better way than to bring in the gas bat? So
I just noticed
you're seeing here is the
labeled
final
utterly
rendering
useless
for the
feat.
gas bat.
That's funny.
But I'll just show you roughly how, I'll take you through the processes of other creatures as well. So it's not just the BGB that you'll be seeing today. And the guys have given me charge to actually go in and share with you some of the creatures that have been worked on as part of the game's dev process. So as you can see here, I like to do a 3/4. Now I didn't go to town on this guy because again I wasn't really sure if he would even make it. He was a bit of an in-joke that I actually did up for the lads just to show in a meeting for a bit of fun. But yeah, they seem to really like it. So I took it further and did a little orthographic view, which you'll see here. Because it's important that when you do, you do your 3/4 render here just to get the feel and the palette and the overall color schemes, and the texture and materials. But if you're going to build it, you need an orthographic view. So that's essentially what I did here, a top-down view of this bat. And I imagine that their wings wouldn't work too well. They wouldn't really be much use at all. They'd just humorously and pathetically flap, not really propelling the creature in any different direction at all. And it was this strange inflatable internal gas bladder that actually kept them aloft, as you see here. Straining lint plugged navel. So yeah, it swells up with air. Oop, he's gone that way. Alright, cool. He can stay down there. He's a bit scary. So yeah, I had a bit of fun with this, and Bruno actually ended up building our BGB. Now, he hasn't made it into game yet, but I imagine very soon he'll be terrorizing people in no time. So the design of this guy, the dynamic that they actually bring, is that they add a chain reaction type effect to gameplay. So imagine if you've got a couple of mobs of these guys and they're in close proximity to each other. When they expire, when they are defeated, the goal is, and this is the thought, was that they can actually explode in a shower of rancid, pustulous gas, just to add that humour in there. But if another BGB is within range of that explosion, they also are set off, and so on it goes. So imagine if you've got another party next to you and you're fighting a mob of BGBs and they drift across. You wipe them out, 6 of them explode, and the other guys, the other party that are actually hammering away at their fight, get affected by an AoE. So just a dynamic to consider. I'm not sure if that's going to be the way it goes, but I would really, really love that to happen. So guys, in a nutshell, that's our BGB, our buoyant gas bat, our common endemic life form of Terminus. Yeah. Something completely different to the gas bat. This was actually part of Project Fairfall when we first began this, and it was important that as I started to develop the botany and just the lay of the land and how all that terrain actually looked and working up the forest in general, it was important for me to imagine what lived there. And something that came out of this was the Ogrim. Now, as you know, we've got temporary animals and creatures in there, things that are like standing in as grizzlies and wolves and all that sort of jazz. But the thing is, this is a high fantasy world. But I'm also trying to make sure that there's a familiar touchstone as well. Because if you've got something that's familiar, for instance, it kind of looks like a grizzly, it moves a little bit like a grizzly, and it fills that role in the ecosystem and the biome that a grizzly bear does, then you're going to get that familiar touchstone. And that's really comforting to players coming in, because it also gives you room to grow. And what I mean by that is the further out you get into the more exotic regions and realms, the more crazy and the more alien and the more really high fantasy you can push your creatures. Whereas if you dial everything in the local regions, like in Throne Fast, Avenger's Pass and Hell in the Cave, if you dial all those things right up to 11 from the get-go, you give yourself no room to really showcase the fantastical. Hence the Ogrim as part of Project Fairfall. So he was our common endemic beast of the woods, our wandering paw that sort of filled the role of a grizzly, but it was important that he wasn't a straight up grizzly. Now, what you see here is a couple of...
It almost looks more like a cat at first.
Just to get the feel. And I knew that
I see the grizzly.
Point was a grizzly bear, but I wanted to change it up a little bit. And it's very easy to start doing that by adding protuberances and changing the hair and giving yourself different structures that come off the creature. But they can often feel like a tack on, like an add-on, like a poor man's grizzly, if you take my meaning. So what I tried to do here was change the face a little bit as well, keep everything that is the spirit of a bear in terms of its design aesthetic, but a little bit different as well. So I started here. I was like, what if it's got this really cool protuberance, because a lot of grizzlies have this really massive hump, this fatty hump here, which defines their structure, their physiology. I thought, what if that kind of emerged like a mineral protuberance, and it had like these kind of little thorny husks on it, and then takes them off the shoulder blade here as well, and then running off the elbow there into the back of the front paws and the legs here. But ostensibly it's a grizzly bear. But then I didn't give myself the room to grow here. I was like, I've kind of started, I've pushed it too far maybe early on. So I dialed it back, because what I want to do is be able to create variants of these guys when we get to polar regions, maybe dense jungle regions, deciduous forests and other areas, just so we can get some local endemic life which can operate as an Ogrim, but you can theme them and you can skin them and make them a little bit different. So imagine this guy is more suitable to the polar regions, so he's got like a white pelt, frosty blue palette coming through this here, more like ice protuberances coming off to give it that high fantasy element. But you'll see I dialed it back. I kept it really subtle, really simple, reduced these protuberances back, gave it enough of a hint that it's not a bear, it's not a grizzly anyway, not from Earth, it's a Ogrim from Terminus. So you can see he's quite a large lad, it's a big boy. But I'll show you the render. So basically I took the sketches, ran them through the JNG filter, That's our wonderful writer who has a look at all my work and often has a lot to say in terms of how to dial it in and make it comparable with the lore and support the lore, which is really important. But yeah, he had a lot to say on this one, and just in terms of dialing it back, keeping it simple, giving us that familiar touchstone. So without further
Oop. Is that them?
ado, the coated hair,
Oh, there it is. Whoa.
wild eye, but then
Yeah,
play up
I
these
think the
really
stream is
cool
lagging a
burrowing
little bit.
tusks. You know, maybe he digs around and barks trees and gets things out of them as well. You know, scratches his back on the big old wood trees. So he is our wandering beast of Oldwood, probably the largest threat you'll see roaming through some of the lower levels in Oldwood, but ostensibly a bear, just done in a very different way. So that's our Ogrim there, and yeah, I hope you guys like.
Oh guys, I had a lot of fun with these guys here. This was part of Project Fairfall, and I really got to dive into, you know, some of the denizens that could have been present, especially in Oldwood there, because that was our focus for Project Fairfall.
Crazy.
And I just started to imagine, you know, with the proximity to the city, how close it was to other surrounding areas just outside the forest itself, and then the forest at large. And I just started to bridge the gap a little bit. And knowing it's got a very strong elven presence there, I started to think about some of the incidentals that could be, you know, just flittering around and just filling your periphery. For instance, like these cowled glasswings, the elven messenger bird. Now I know that the elves use ways of actually delivering messages and things like that, but I thought it might be nice to just busy the area up a little bit with some industry and the comings and goings of birds, because that just makes it feel more alive. So I thought, oh, wouldn't it be neat if you actually encountered some of these largish birds that actually act like a carrier pigeon. You could see them flying over, landing, going from the taverns and then up to the city, and then plunging in to meet the wardens of the old wood there. I think that'd be really neat. So think of a brightly coloured bird, and then the wings, the underside, like iridescent, reflective glass, almost like mirror glass. And I was wondering if they could leave like a particulate trail as they go, just giving off that ethereal quality. So they were more of the the happier denizens here, just little incidental things. And if you attack one, well, then you're just a very horrible person. But it was just fun to play with these things. So I thought about, oh, what's actually in the old wood, the deeper in you go into some of the warrens and dens of the forest. So I thought about this really big, almost like a furry terrestrial tarantula type thing, with these massive hypodermic, you know, foot appendages on here, and this territorial threat display type thing, fanning off the back of the abdomen. So again, think really, really bright colours. And you just see them moving through, just marching through the forest. You mightn't see all this down here, but you'll see the abdomen, you know, rattling and vibrating, coming through the underbrush. A little bit scary, just a little bit. And then I thought, you know, oh, what's going on down, you know, down at the lower level, even down at the shin height level. And again, this is less about, obviously everything can be attacked and everything can be defeated. That's the goal of an MMO. But not everything has to be an immediate threat or an apparent danger. It can just sort of blend into the terrain and give it that high fantasy vibe. So to that end, I thought about things that were hidden in plain sight. So these rocks, which might look like rocks, and they've got fungus and lichens growing on them. And you might see a couple of different ones at different sizes. Maybe as players move in, they pause, so they just look like rocks. But then as you pass, or you target them, they'll actually rise up, and with these kind of wormy tendrils march off into the underbrush with their family in tow. I've always had strong Brian Froud influence. I've always loved his stuff. Rodney Matthews is another influencer of my artwork from a very young age. And it's just got that high fantasy, almost dark crystal kind of vibe. So I really wanted to touch on that. I had a lot of fun with these guys. Little woodland pteronomoids. Don't ask me where these names come from. It's good fun.
Oh, there we go. They're like little crabs.
You know, at the moment we've got these proxy wasps that inhabit the old wood, but they don't have to be a traditional wasp. You know, they don't have to have the traditional abdomen, thorax, and then the carapace. with the head attached? You know, what if it lacked the abdomen and they were just this round ovoid carapace, big bulbous wing segments, fast beating like a dragonfly, furry appendages, almost plant-like, and then these really, really big frontal mandibular type incisors on the top here, and then just little legs to steady themselves as they go between harvest points.
I actually really like
pollinators of the
those.
forest, essentially.
You can picture that like
A
just
decent
hovering.
size on them too. So the body you're looking at there is probably about the size of a human head. At least that's the goal. And then I thought, okay, well, what about, rather than having deer and elk in the woods, something a little bit different. And again, at this level, you're not looking to go too far. You just want to go just really, really loose and keep the possibilities open and just get your shapes down and fill a role in the forest biome. So this is my female woodland strider. The male's on the way. But yeah, this is where we're going with here for Fairfall, the old wood in particular. And then I thought, what happens when you get deeper into the old wood? And the trick was to just get as much runway as I could. You know, don't do any finals, just keep everything really loose, pencil sketch, just open to possibilities, change, and rapid prototyping. Because that's where we're at the moment.
It's crazy that these are just his like quick, casual drawings.
Now, the introduction of water to old wood, especially in and around the waterfalls and some of those inland lagoons, little reservoirs of water on the plateaus up where the trees are. It's always intrigued me to just have some of these really big, beautiful pink fuchsia and salmon coloured water birds with these unusual, vibrant crests. And I thought, you know, really get some height on this thing so that when you see it, you see a flock of them standing, you know, shin deep in the water. It's just a nice spectacle. Maybe as you approach, they go into a flea-type disposition. They'll take to flight, dive and plunge down through the valley, circle around overhead, and then land again when players are nowhere near. So just little things to add some spice to the endemic flavour of the terrain. And then I thought, well, I want to put things in the roles in the biomes, but I don't want to just make it a frog or a toad. I want it to do what a toad does and fill the role a toad fills, but not be a toad. So to this end, I came up with this pond-dwelling mollusk toad. So you can imagine it idling away, you know, these eyes shrinking down and then popping all the way up to extend, maybe swiveling around 180 degrees to take in the landscape and check for threats. But you know, imagine like bright lime yellow with these purple, you know, striations running through it, and they can be in the water as well. So I tend to think biomes when I think about life that's there, and think about play space as well. So these were the more innocuous, more spectacle type things that didn't look actively out to hunt you down, whereas the Veil Strider is a little bit more aggressive and territorial. And I thought, you know, we've got, at the moment we had foxes standing in for the Veil Strider, and I wanted something a little bit, you know, just really out there. Still had familiar elements, but, you know, decidedly alien. So I thought it's got the fox-like ears, can fill that role in the biome. But then imagine this guy like electric blue, you know, with these kind of aqua, you know, lighter aqua striations running through, and then this almost cyan, fibrous membranes of hair running down the back, and then coming into the similar treatment on the tail. And yeah, he's almost like a saber-toothed cat, you know, 4 eyes. All the better to see you by in the darkness. And just, oh man, just a really fun guy to actually mess with. Yeah, it's a lot of fun doing this, guys, and I couldn't do it without you. You really are enabling me to dive in and do the thing of my dreams. So thank you so much, guys. I so appreciate it, and I want to do the best job I can for you all. Again, filling that role of a flyer, almost like a mosquitoid, hemovistoid. I confuse even myself sometimes. But yeah, it's like a crazy type of dragonfly, mosquito type creature that can fill the air and have some really cool fun attacks and animations. Guys, we're going to switch gears here just a little bit. You might remember how I said I consider the biomes before I do any kind of creature work. That's just really good practice. Because if we're not really considering the environment that the creature is from when we design a creature, it's going to have disparity between the creature's physiology and the place it's supposed to inhabit. So to this end, I promised a little bit of speed paints in the producer's newsletter. So here we are. This is Fae Hollow, or some very rough things to do with Fae Hollow, just in terms of what I call speed paints. They're not finished pieces of art, they're just very rough, impressionistic pieces. So
It does not look rough to me.
The kind of creatures that live here are being informed by these speed paints of the biome itself. So you can see some of the different biomes here, or the different sections of Fae Hollow. This is more exterior to the tree. We'll keep dialing that out. It's starting to get on the insides. It's got more of that bark and loose roots and mossy tendrils and these different pieces of botany coming down. So you can imagine the spaces, a bit more exterior here, and this is like right at the crown, right at the crest. So I started imagining, okay, well, it's largely wood. It's probably got a lot of detritus and loose forest material on the insides, probably a lot of rot. So I started thinking, cool. What about borer and strange, insect life that likes to inhabit rotting pieces of timber? So our creatures. Okay, so again, some of these have familiar touchstones. The colors will be very vibrant and it'll really pop from the rest of the terrain. Every fantasy world's got to have some great huge centipede type thing. It's almost iconic in so many ways. So I started messing around with this enzymorphic metacephaloid. That's good fun. Imagine it's wiggling legs that rears up in an attack idle. It's got acid cannons, so it's got a ranged attack. Just something familiar touchstone, but with delivered in a slightly unfamiliar way. And then I got to these tree boring insectoids, and I started thinking about the larval states and some of the incidental creatures that we could have, just rummaging through the detritus on the inside of these bored out trees. So this is like the larvae state for this tree boring tetramegalopod, something akin to that. And then again, some just some familiar touchstones, some really fast roaches that dart in and out, just your incidental stuff, just to give you that feeling of this tree is alive. And then I just started to play and push it a little bit, with this gelatinous lung-horned slug. So again, it's got that kind of nudibranked, bright, vibrant colours, prehensile harpoon tongue, which might be a bit of a surprise. Just something a little bit different to see as incidental NPCs roaming around, in addition to the Fae, which inhabit Fae Hollow. Yeah, environment, it's so important.
He can sing too.
Any kind of creature, it has to be anchored, grounded in the environment type that it inhabits. So something that really appealed to me when I was actually doing one of these particular biomes was a creature actually came out of my speed paints. So these are really rough and ready, but I just wanted to show you something really, really simple. It's not dialed in, it's not particularly well established, it's just a suggestion, a fleeting thought to inhabit this particular region, and I'll show you the results of that when we took this and fleshed it out a little bit more in a sketch. Okay, so you can see what I mean here, how powerful a speed paint can be. I've actually blown this one right up. It's a very small sketch, but again, I'm not looking for specifics, for details when I'm doing any kind of environmental things. But this creature was just something really incidental to inhabit these wide open spaces of Terminus, which you'll soon enjoy. And it was just something that came out of the speed paint. So without further ado, I will reveal.
I wonder if that's the Silent Plains. That looks so cool.
The Greater Blue Plains Ox. Again, it's got familiar touchstones. It fills the role of a great buffalo type creature, but the scale on this guy is really, really big. And the goal is to see these guys moving in big herds, across the wide open spaces. And the goal for me is to get the subadults in, the females, and even some of the calves as different variants and classes.
This is the human down here.
But the most fun I had with this was just, creating an element of high fantasy there, but, with a little bit of a twist in there, like with different horn arrays. And this guy's a really sleepy,
that's huge,
fairly docile type creature, but just a wonderful addition to some of the big wide open places on Terminus. And this got me thinking, how can we reuse this creature in a more domestic way? How can we see elements of this creature in the other regions? And it got me thinking about this really cool character that Justin had mentioned to me long ago one of the traders there, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but this was just, it's just too good to sit on. His name is Wister the White. Now, I'm not going to go into too many details about him and his personality and character as such, but I thought, what if we changed it up and had a vendor that wasn't just sitting on the ground or in a stall, but actually was more of a, how do you say, a mobile trader? And it got me thinking about how to integrate this particular creature to give him a little bit more character and uniqueness in the world of Terminus among the other vendors. So with that in mind, I came up with the following solution to that. And Wister the White's Traveling Wonder Emporium was born. Just a bit of fun, you know, and I thought about animation largely with this, so I really wanted Ross to have a lot of fun with this, because I just imagine this guy trundling across the wide open spaces and the trade routes of Terminus, crossing zone lines.
It's almost like an
and then setting
elephant
up, you know, coming to a standstill outside
from
of
Lord of the Rings.
Fast or Avenger's Pass, or, you know, in even some of the other regions on King's Reach. And you've got all this stuff hanging off him. He's like a mobile trader with his dwelling on the back of this beast of burden, various odds and ends and items, you know, for sale. It's just a fun way to introduce a new exciting vendor. And I thought, you know, what better way to get some really cool different secondary animations and follow through and character than to dress this beast up with, you know, little bits and odds and ends from different parts of the world. Like you got these elven lanterns from Fairfall, you know, you've got some of these, you know, thrown Fastian shields on top. You've got some of the Ratkin melons from where the Ratkin dwell. You've got orcish weapons, so it speaks to him, you know, trading with these other races, you know, different shields from other particular player races even. And I thought, you know, he could just hang off this ladder here and trade with you off the ground. And it's just a wonderful animation opportunity. You know, you could even have his bodyguard. And these are very loose, by the way. Very super loose. I'll just zoom in on these guys for a little bit. Just a bit of fun. You know, imagine this guy, he's like the driver. And then, you know, some developmental art for Wister, just some really, really basic stuff. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun. He's like the more mercantile, you know, version of a Ratkin trader there. And it just got me thinking, you know, let's have some fun with this. And really enjoy the experience of bringing something really unique to life as a character integrated with creature design. It's just so funny what can come out of a speed paint, you know, like an afterthought. Just jamming with Justin and you're creating biomes and different parts of the landscape. And then little afterthoughts can become such major features that can sometimes really define a zone or define a play experience and give people, you know, that cultural touchstone to latch onto. So I had a hoot with this guy. I really did. And I cannot wait to actually show you the render and show you live as well. I'll do a couple other videos if you'll have me, showing you how I bring a sketch to a fully rendered state. That'd be something I do next with you guys. So some things, obviously, I want to still be a surprise for you guys, but I'll just be really quickly. I won't speak to these in detail, but I'll just be really quick here and just show you some of the other denizens that are being worked on. Purely in sketch
we're gonna be
form
fighting
to get some runway
mushrooms.
for the rest of the project. So we've got some of the smaller creatures here, where you can see that's player height reference here. Some of our more agile runners of the open spaces. You can imagine this is almost like a really vivid peacock-like plumage, with that azure and the purples and some of the crimsons and cyans running through these striations here. Yeah, I imagine you've got this entire ecosystem, which is what I'm going for, to balance it out a little bit more. But naturally, where there is prey, there is also predator. So this was something obviously based on those really, really cool, you know, theropod type dinosaurs there, but with a little bit of a twist. It's got some mammalian aspects to it, with these really emotive ears that can swivel, and this strange elaborate head crest that runs off the nose bridge there, and these really big prominent brow horns that radiate backwards, and then again really colourful, like a web membrane running off the spine, going all the way down here. And these are larger creatures that I'm working on at the moment.
I mean, that's a
because
T-Rex.
so far
I think we can all
has been,
agree.
down to player height. But I think for big open spaces, it's really important to get some height on these guys. I'd like to speak to that a little bit more. Something very special that I'd like to share with you guys from its very early development, and just some of the insights and wonderful things that I've come to connect with this creature that I've been working on. given a very wonderful and beautiful man that I've had the privilege to work with. And I'm referring to our own very gentle giant, Kurt Mollard Hebetler, who was our technology lead here for a number of years and was when I came on, who passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, and very tragically, but only a few days ago. And as I work this up, I'd just like to share a little bit about Kurt, because those who knew him loved him. You couldn't help but love him. To know him was to love him. And just such a wonderful and beautiful servant of the craft, servant of the game, and just servant of his fellow co-workers. He was blessed with a servant's heart, and in everything he did, he showed that forth to each and every one of us. His duty of care, the quality of his heart, just in his general dealings, his humorous dealings, the way he communicated with the team, and at its heart always for their well-being, their joy, and just their overall happiness during the development process. Kurt was not only really ahead of the curve in what he actually did as far as his occupation, but I think in many ways he was ahead of the curve in his compassion for his fellow man. And that's something that's been echoed by my co-workers, and the testimonies that are coming through now as we process this tragedy that's rocked VR at the moment. The death of our wonderful friend, because he was a friend too, and first and foremost. So as I just work this up, I just want to articulate, and words do not adequately, nor can they adequately articulate just how wonderful this man was, and the impact he had on everybody that knew him, everybody that worked with him, and everybody that he fellowshipped with. He's just such an energetic blessing to be around. You couldn't help but have a good day, regardless of what was happening. You know, even in your own life and in your own days and your travels. He was just such a positive influence, even regardless of what was going on in his comings and goings, and in the days that he had. Just a wonderful, resilient man. You can be tough through dire circumstance, or you can be strong through dire circumstance. And I like to think of Kurt as strong. He was never tough. He was strong. And the difference was he never had a hardened heart in everything that had happened to him. He always kept a wonderful, positive outlook. And for that, I'm really grateful, just in hearing the things that he shared with us and the time he spent with us. Just such a remarkable blessing that this man was on the team. And let me tell you, not only as technology lead, and the incredible role and the diligent role that he filled in faithfully servicing this team and keeping the game going and helping out with the builds and resetting the server, among so many, a raft of other tasks that weren't easy. A lot of it involved troubleshooting. But not only in this regard is he irreplaceable, but as our wonderful friend, brother, and fellow VR family member. Yeah, it's hard to articulate into words the actual loss that we're experiencing right now. And given the time of year that it is, this has come as quite a blow to the team. But we don't cling to our circumstances, but we look ever forward. And it's people like Kurt who inspired us, that despite our circumstances and despite the travailings we go through, that we can be made equal to the fire, standing firmly together, by sharing each other's burdens and loads, by checking in on one another, by making sure that we are not only okay just as colleagues, but also as human people. And I think that's the wonderful point of difference with Kurt. As I lay these lines in, I'm thinking of him right now, and the joy just wells up in my heart for just such a wonderful man, a tall man. He really was our gentle giant, and this is why I've made this link with this wonderful creature that I'm working up now. And in my heart, at least, it will be forever and indelibly etched in my mind that every time I see this creature wonderfully and gently roaming the plains, I'll think of Kurt. And I won't be sad when I think of Kurt. I'll be full up. I'll be filled. I'll remember the good times. I'll remember the wonderful kindnesses and the selflessness that he exhibited to others. And his wonderful, wonderful greeting wherewith he would greet us every creative meeting, which spoke of a smile on his face. And that was enough for me. It was an absolute joy and a privilege to serve and work and inhabit the same workspace. However far the distance was geographically, we were never far from each other. Indeed, this whole team, as scattered as it is across the globe, it is one. And never have I seen a more wonderful outpouring as I've seen for this man, this Kurt Mollard Hebetler, who is our brother, our friend, and just such a wonderfully unique and irreplaceable person. So as you see this sky grazer trundling across the open plains of Terminus, moving gracefully in herds, reaching up to the sky, as tall as you could ever dare to imagine, I hope that you guys think of Kurt too. And this is just a little tribute to him, that little piece that's going to go in the game. And every time I see it, I know I'll think of him. And we're just so grateful to have been able to meet him, spend time with him, and just to enjoy his company, to learn from him, and just be alongside him for even but a small part of his life. Kurt was light and he was salt. He just seemed to carry his own atmosphere with him, his own climate, and that deep, booming, resonant laugh that was just such a characteristic of just who he was. I just know I'll never forget him. I'm just so thankful that his life touched my own. And we're just really thankful for you guys, for all you do for us, for every loving kindness you show us, every support you show us, every act of faith you show us. And we're just so very grateful to be on this journey with you, and so thankful that you as a community support us. So from the volume of our hearts, thank you so much for all you do. It is appreciated, it is marveled at, and it is a treasure for us. So thank you so much. And we'll see each other again, no doubt in here, and I'm looking forward to it. So take care everybody, be safe, look after each other, be there for each other, and treasure each other and all you say and do. Take care and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks for that, Jared. So how was that Monster Jam? That was really good. And as far as Kurt we're always going to remember him. He really was a wonderful man. How was that Monster
Jam? Yeah, I mean, good thing Jared is never at a loss for words. That's for sure. He pretty much summed up, I think, how the entire team feels and just sort of the loss we're feeling. I don't want to talk too much because I know we have to get to the rest of the stream, but I'll miss Kurt's. He always started every meeting or anytime you met him with the greetings. That was his saying, and I think that's how I'll always remember him.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of working with Kurt for several years, and he was always an encouragement. He's very steady, always willing to help, and that always resonates with me when someone is just a steady person, kind of the same each day. And Kurt's same was always encouraging and helpful, and just really grateful for the chance to know him. And we're all going to miss him greatly.
So next up, we have a little bit of a gameplay video for y'all. We got in game and started messing around a little bit. So let's head over there now. We'll go live to our testing studio with Ben, Dave, Jared, or Chris. Who else was there? Jason and Tyler. Thanks, Ben. And here we are in game. It's just an internal testing session. I'm going to hand things over to Chris Joppa Perkins to tell us what it's all about.
I don't know why that got me.
Before we get into that, please do keep in mind that this is pre-alpha, so all art and animations and various things are in a pre-alpha state. You might see some bugs as well. Chris?
Yeah, well, welcome everyone. As Ben said, this is really an internal testing session. We wanted to invite you guys into it. This is an opportunity for us specifically for this session to test combat and some balance and some tuning with combat in a larger group setting. We're here in Avendir's Pass, up right outside of we're inside of Hangor. We're right outside of the war chief's tent, as you can see ahead of us here. And we're just doing some combat, some fighting. This is really low key, informal. It is an actual internal test, and just wanted to record a little bit of it and share it with you all. So as you can see, we've got 5 people here: myself, David, Jason, Ben, and Tyler. And I'm actually going to kick it over to Tyler. He is one of our designers, and his primary focus has been on combat and tuning stats, everything from the class abilities to the weaponry, the armor, and the actual attributes and stats for the players and the NPCs. And he's been doing an incredible job, and he is the most fit out of all of us here to speak to the ins and outs of this stuff. And I thought it would be interesting to hear from him specifically on, when we do tests like this, what are the things, Tyler, that you're looking for? How do you measure whether things are moving in the right direction? And then just a little bit of some insight into the kind of work that you've been doing from your perspective would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. So first off, after this pool, we'll take a quick break to let y'all met up. But yeah, one of the things that has been most exciting is getting in and really understanding how everything fits together, getting that foundational layer in place and getting all the numbers where we want them to be in the future as well, from an early level on, moving all the way up through the higher levels. It's been quite an experience. As you know, I came onto the team to perform this not too long ago, and really it's been getting that grounding. So a lot of our PA testers have experienced a lot of this tuning in practice as we've gone, and they've got a chance to see the progress or the kind of ups and downs and highs and lows as we go. But one of the key factors that I've been doing is really setting that foundational level for us and making sure that what we have in the future, and I'm going to try to look for something to pull as I talk here, but what we have in the future is going to support that feel in the game that we truly desire. So I mentioned in the PA forums to a bunch of our testers kind of how I started out with that lower or that hierarchy of tuning, how I did that pass. And what I mentioned to them was that I've broken this down into a few categories. And I mentioned that we have the general category and the dungeon category. And those are the 2 primary ones. And we have a third that's raid, of course, but I won't go into that. I'll stick with the general and dungeon for a moment here. And what I've done is I've broken those general and dungeon categories down into 3 separate subcategories as well. And based off of how we want the feel of the fight to go, we're able to quickly apply these templates that we have to each of the mobs that we have in the game. And that allows us to quickly implement different areas and zones and get everything up to speed with the right feel and pace of game that we want to have going throughout each zone in each area. So that's been the start, and that general breaks down into 3 subcategories again, and that I break it down into general weak, general standard, and general unique. And then that usually implies that that general weak, for example, might be a higher solo success rate, not necessarily guaranteed. Not that you're going to be able to successfully solo all the time, but there may be certain NPCs, very very general, very non-unique. Very just run-of-the-mill NPCs out there, maybe such as your level 1 through 5 NPCs, that you want to have a higher success rate, and those mobs would be tuned as such. And then we have from there our general standard, which is going to move into more of a group play, group-centric. Maybe a small group would be good for that. And I'm going to lay there's the mana. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull this. But then as the smaller group gets into that more unique feel, again, we have just a general unique, which is just, again, highlighting that small group experience with a unique mob. The stats are varied slightly, but I won't spoil all the details for that. Now the dungeon, we've actually had some conversation about dungeon already, and it confused quite a few people because when they think dungeon, they think it has to be underground, they think it has to be in a certain area. But as you can see here, these NPCs that we're facing are tuned for a dungeon experience, and they're in a very open environment. And that's a very unique feel that we want to capture, we want to emphasize on, because that dungeon doesn't mean that it has to be in a dungeon. It's more just highlighting the type of experience we want, that group experience, that full group experience to where NPC's time to kill is extended, to where the damage output is at a point where you don't want to risk too many coming at you at once, because as you can see, even as we're all equal level to this NPC, he's not going to go down very quickly. So that's part of the overall just kind of general feel of the game that we want to highlight and provide. And then past that, it's really breaking down the stat variations, the formulas, making sure that everything's in line and working as intended. It's a big part of where we want to go in the future and how we want to get there. And I'm gonna for a second here, guys, just because we are playing while we're talking, I'm gonna let y'all's mana get up and then pull from the cave back here. But again, it's getting that
real quick, Tyler, too, because I think one of the things that you said in the beginning about kind of the mobs that were weaker in the overland areas. We talked about this quite a bit, and they've been really good conversations design-wise. But if you pull back and you look at Pantheon as a whole, challenge is something we've talked about very, very early on and very consistently. I mean, that's a huge that is a staple hallmark pillar of our game. But if you look at some of the other game systems, things like climbing, things like what we're in right now, we're experiencing a climate. We have the climate turned on. It's a tier 1 climate, so we're only getting the movement speed reduction. But you can see the frigid border around the screen and see the debuff that we all have on. It's glacial pace. But from climates to atmospheres to the kind of discoverable items that there are in the world, the way the crafting and the harvesting system is predicated on discovery and exploration, the climbing system, things like that. We want to build a game world that is incredibly challenging and difficult, but also not so overbearingly punishing in every corner, every nook, every cranny, that players don't have the ability to enjoy that exploration and that discovery element. And so that conversation fed a lot into the way Tyler's taken this direction in this overland weak kind of denomination of NPC. And those different denominations of NPCs you would encounter in the overland, just to allow players a little bit more breathing room to explore without sacrificing the intense levels of difficulty that we obviously do have planned. So I'll kick it back to you, Tyler.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. We often, when it comes to balance and tuning, have a lot of discussion around just how the general feel of the game, to your point, the exploration piece of it, and all the other aspects that we want to highlight should belong. And that's a critical piece to how we have to tune and balance, these individual encounters, but just overall the encounters themselves. So it's been very, very, enlightening and very, very useful for me when it comes to looking at the numbers as to highlighting how I want to apply those to each one of these NPCs that we have throughout the world. And a little bit to that point, Chris, as you mentioned, we've actually gone through and discussed, by area, by design, how we want these to feel. And because we're able to put these in kind of those categories and subcategories, we're able to quickly get these zones and areas up and, operational for testing purposes, just as we did here. And that's really helping us to really define a lot of the actual categories even more in depth now. And then we also want that unique factor. We want to be able to customize some of those experiences as well, and we're still going to have that ability. That's not going to be lost with this. This is going to get us that general foundational feel, and then we're going to be able to really make some of those experiences unique with additional things on top of that. So I did want to highlight one thing as well. One of the things we mentioned while going through some of our testing was we would die like Ronick tends to do. And he wasn't able to get back to the group just because of the difficulty of the world itself. So having some of those avenues or paths that may allow such a feat of getting back to a group sometimes becomes very important, to where you want to allow players to experience the world and not get stuck in a corner somewhere. So yes, I think that we've had a lot of conversation on that topic. It's been very, very useful, and overall, hopefully the players can get in here and without having to have some big flashing indicator of what difficulty of NPC, they can tell by the terrain, by the environment, by where they're at and how difficult it was to get there, that what they're expecting to feel should probably be based around the surrounding area. The look and feel of it should help them identify how that NPC should feel in combat, whether it should be something that they want to get a group for or something they may be able to kind of I guess you could say take on with a smaller force. So yeah, I didn't know. I don't know if you wanted to go into anything, and I keep saying Chris, and I apologize, Joppa, but if you want to go anything deeper with the numbers or with anything like that, I'd be happy to dive into it.
I would love to, but sorry, I know my name's not Chris, but unfortunately we're running close on time here. Any closing thoughts, Chris or Tyler?
Well, what I was going to say is we definitely want to do that, and much like we need to do with the wizard, and we need to do with the rogue and the enchanter, which is coming online soon, we need to do a deeper dive on the numbers and talk a little bit more in depth with some actual gameplay to back it up, just deeper into this process, and I think that would be really enjoyable to see. So we'll definitely get that on the books sometime.
I think that's going to be cool. Well, thank you, everybody. Back to you, Ben, Chris, and Dave. That was fun. That play session is fun. I hope that we can do some more of those in the future too, by the way, guys. Just kind of a candid look at us playing the game, testing it out. So thanks, Chris, and thanks, Dave, and thanks, Jason and Tyler for all of that. That was good.
And Jared.
Oh, well, and Jared for his video too. That was fantastic.
Yeah, we need to do more of those. I mean, those, again, we said at the beginning, but we do a lot of internal play tests. And one of the ways that we can do more showing instead of telling is to record those. And hopefully when we have a shorter stream on other segments, we have a long stream tonight with the other segments. We don't have as much time, but we can linger in some of those short videos a little bit more.
Yeah, I like it.
In the future.
But for tonight, we have some patch notes.
We do.
Dave?
Some pretty exciting ones indeed.
Dave, do you have an intro for us? Tell us you have a song.
I'm not going to start until you sing.
Okay, that's good enough.
Okay. I agree.
Chris?
Go ahead, CP.
All right. All right, I'm going to try to recover from that for you. Let's dive in. It's been a good month. A lot of cool stuff to talk about. Just going to give highlights, but I've been excited to share these. So we'll start with our newest dungeon in the works, currently known as Mangle Rock. So Tim Convo-Wathen and Jimmy Torque Lane have been working really hard on this newest dungeon. I've been honored, and it's been exciting to just kind of see the various aspects of progress along the way that they've been working on, from the ideation phase to kind of some of the very rough sketches and mock-ups to actually starting to see it in its gray box form. And we're just really excited about it because of what it has in store for the players. I mean, the game's overall kind of pushing the boundaries of the Pantheon experience. I think the ways that we're going to be able to do that in Mangle Rock are going to be really exciting. So that's been a big push this month. Jimmy, again, has been continuing to make significant strides with Houdini, which he did a pretty big, expose on earlier. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more about that soon enough. Also, Tyler's just been on the warpath. Sacred has been on the warpath with tuning and balancing, stats, itemizations, all that stuff. Just been amazing to see, and just a lot of work being done in regards to the game's overall balance, which the closer the game comes to feeling right across all the different level ranges, across all the different, kind of, what's the word, tiers of player power progression, as you're getting better gear, improving your abilities, the mastery system coming into play, and then just seeing how all of that affects the player versus the NPC engagement, and feeling your power increase and seeing the NPC's power increase. And he's just been doing a fantastic job of that. I'm excited for the testers to get in this weekend and start banging on that. We were able to get our refactor player trading system in, including item and currency trading, and just getting after the major refactor we did. There's actually a few items here I'm going to mention just in terms of post refactoring, getting some of these fundamental systems now with, kind of that newer code base underneath, hooked back up, working, and then obviously the optimizations and just the power of those systems that have come with it has been really exciting to see. We've also made good progress on our world item system. And this is governing everything from lootable props that you would find on the ground. If you've noticed some of the streams, you'll see everything from picking up an apple or a berry, something like that, all the way to our plans for the scavenging system. You go into an orc camp, you finish taking out the orcs, and you might find a weapon on a weapon rack that you can pick up, or a shield laying on a table, or something like that. It's a lot of fun to do some pretty mundane stuff, but then also a lot of potential for some really, really rare finds being found in that manner, which I just think is super cool. Also with that, we've revamped our door and our key system, which sounds maybe not so exciting, but it is exciting because of all the things that we want to do with it. And so everything obviously from basic locks and the keys that go to them, or the lock picking, but also the kind of door key related puzzles, and then really graduating into more advanced locks. So going from basic locks to what we call enigmatic locks, which are going to require a much more involved process to open, and then even into like arcane type locks.
You're gonna have some in-game escape
really
rooms.
Cool. And, just like with our traps, even earlier in the stream, saw a question about mobs or NPCs, creatures that might ambush players in the world. And so the whole concept of like traps and things to interact with in the world, we're really big on that. So excited to see those making good process. We've also been able to do a lot of freshening up to the Sleepless and the Nashra boss encounters. Again, this is a post-refactor type item, but with all the refactoring that's been done, getting those back to their kind of working shape has been really exciting. Again, just seeing the optimization, seeing the power of the systems underneath, and really, really excited for that. Number one, because it's something very important to the pre-alpha testing phases, to get players in there doing some of the group-oriented boss encounters, as well as the raid, a raid encounter for all the testing that goes into that. And then also for the evaluation build we're working on to really kind of push forward that kind of content. We got the Acclimation UI fully hooked up. Post refactor, you've been seeing a lot of aspects of Acclimation and climate, including the gameplay video we just saw with the frigid screen effects, with the core detriment, the glacial pace. But now, again, post refactor, we've been able to go back through, hook up that Acclimation window in the UI where you're able to, measure your total acclimation score. You're able to utilize glyphs now to increase different types of acclimation in the different slots. The natural exposure that you gain as you're in a climate, for longer periods of time is now working. And so it's really just a full circle moment this month where we've been able to see that system and all the various aspects of it come together. And our first toxic climate, we're actually going to be getting online here soon, which will be really fun to see. Several new animations hooked up this month. Animations are always churning, either new animations or animation polish, and that will continue all the way up, through alpha, beta, and it's a lot of work still to be done there, both in generating the animations that we want, and then also continuing to improve the ones that we have. But one of the big ones was the hovering suite of animations. So players, NPCs who are in a levitating state, who are in kind of a free-floating, hovering type state, all of the animations that govern the locomotion, the combat, all the different types of weaponry used in those states, getting those things in place has been a big achievement this month. And then in addition to that, several new status animations for NPCs and players, things like lying down, sitting down, cowering in fear, to more combat-related statuses like stunned, electrocuted, knocked back, knocked down, mesmerized, just to add to that flavor and impact of seeing an NPC in a state. You're not only looking at the debuff icon, but you're seeing them actually, lying on the ground if they've been knocked down and so forth. The Enchanter class came online this month and is going to be available for testing this weekend. First time players are getting their hands on the Enchanter in a long time, which is really exciting. And
mesmerizing.
More I can say, but I'll leave it at that. Yeah, it is mesmerizing, man. It's difficult to even get through that. Lots of cool stuff. Wish I could share more, but we'll do that more next month.
Yeah. So
slacking. You guys are slacking over there, CP.
Yeah,
Yeah,
goodness
yeah, yeah.
gracious. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Unfortunately, we don't have time for a Q&A today, but we will resume that and drop by the boards. We'll speak with you on the forums as well. Pre-alpha testers, remember, we do have pre-alpha this weekend, so if you can make it by, drop by. For those of you who would like to check out our pledges, thanks again to all of our current pledgers for making Pantheon a reality. If you'd like to help out, you can head over to pantheonmmo.com/pledge and check out our pledge packages there. All of that money goes directly into the development of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So that's all we have time for tonight, folks. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, this is Ben Dean.
Happy holidays. We'll see you guys next year.
Enjoy your holidays, everybody. Thank you for giving us an awesome 2020 with everything as hard as it's been. But just know the support, the excitement, the encouragement, it really means a lot to us. Cannot wait to see you in the new year, and keep upward. Let's do it.
Well, alrighty then. Pop back over here. I do have a few thoughts on what we just saw. I'm gonna keep it brief though, because I have been up since 2:30 this morning, so I'm quite tired. If you saw me yawning throughout the stream, it's not because it was a boring stream. It was a good stream. That was solid. It's just because I've been up for too long. Anyway, so let's start at the beginning with Jared's drawings, and I commented on this in the middle of the stream about like the idea of these fast sketches or fast paintings has always fascinated me, and like I actually wish that we could see I wish that we could actually see that happen live. Like I mean, he started he was doing a little bit of a sketch, but that was kind of slow because he was talking about Molad, which, by the way, before I go on, I think we should all just raise a drink to Molad. That it's amazing the tragedies that have struck VR almost exactly a year apart from each other, with Brad first and then now Molad, of course. And I've just never heard of anything like that happening before to a team, such a small team like this, where they're so tight knit, and then to have two losses like that, really not that far from each other, and then still to be able to move forward from that. That's it's just crazy to me. I did meet Molad once briefly at TwitchCon back in 2017. And I didn't talk to him a whole lot because there was so much going on, but the little bit that I did interact with him face to face lines up perfectly with what they were saying about him, that he just seemed like such a nice, chill. He is a giant. he is a big man, but he was just like a big teddy bear, and always had a smile on his face, and was just he seemed like just a cool guy to be around. But anyway, back to Jared and his speed paintings. I've always been a fan of the work that Jared does. Actually, my phone background is a speed painting that he did of Fairfall. That one is my favorite. And so I wish we could actually, I wish he would do like a stream, even if it's just on the side, like not during a newsletter stream or something, just do it on the side. And like, I want to see how fast he can actually crank out these paintings, because we've seen a ton of them. Like, so I can paint, and I do paint, although I'm paint actually physically with a real paintbrush. It's obvious that these are like digital paintings, which I have no experience with, and it's very different, and it probably is faster. But even still, I actually did a painting. I know you can't see it right over there, that I have on my wall in my studio, a painting I did a couple years ago of South Sail Peninsula in Pantheon. and it was pretty good, but it took me like maybe like an hour or 2 hours, and not to the level of detail that Jared did, or at least just in my opinion, I don't know, Jared's still looking better, and I'm sure he did it in a lot less time. So I mean, I'm sure with anything, it's a just a matter of practice, and I don't know how long he's been doing that, but it just fascinates me that, you know, he is like a machine, like single-handedly pumping out these paintings. I know he says it's like very rough, and yeah, if you really like zoom in on it, it's not like hyper realistic, but like, man, is it effective. And I just think that's so cool. So Kalok says go get it. Oh yeah, I'll get it. Since it's weird for me to talk about a painting. I think I actually posted on this on social media, but that was like a long time ago. It's weird for me to talk about a painting and not show it. So one sec. This is my painting that I did of South Sail Peninsula, maybe a couple years ago, and it's you know, it's not perfect. It's got its faults. I've since learned how to do like trees a little bit better than this, but still, I think it's pretty cool. If you look up the picture, the screenshot from South Sail that inspired this painting, I think it's not too bad. The tower is a little bit phallic, if I if I really had to critique myself, but overall, not too bad. Not too bad. I think it makes a nice piece of wall art. So that's that. Anyway, moving on. What else? Oh yeah, the gameplay, the little short gameplay stream. It's cool to hear from Sacred, though. I'm a fan of Sacred myself, and I guess you could say we go way back, because I've been friends with him since before he was on the dev team. Actually, I don't know how many people know that about Sacred, because it was a few years ago at this point. He actually used to be a streamer in the community. He had his own show. I've been on his show. Actually, yeah, that was like in like 2018 or so. I think it was when he was doing that a lot, because I remember I went on his show before I went to PAX East in 2018. So he's a good guy. I always enjoyed talking to him, and so I'm really happy to see that he's doing well. He's actually you know, kind of established himself as a game designer on the team. It looks like he's digging in and doing some good work. So I always like hearing from him. Didn't really like the gameplay though that we saw. It was obviously very short and just kind of just regular grouping and polling and stuff. So I mean, just right off the bat, I wasn't able to get a whole lot from it. Maybe if you go back and watch, you can notice some things. But the first thing that jumped out to me immediately, of course, was that the climate system was in, and that had that frosty effect around the screen. So it's good to see that climates are in and working. I will say though that like as time went on, even just in that short stream, I noticed like that frost effect around the screen is kind of annoying, which is like, I guess, a good thing. But I was surprised. Like, we've seen it before, but in trailers and stuff, but it's very short-lived. And so seeing it in actual gameplay from that perspective going on for extended periods of time, I was like, it's just the edges, and it's not really like critical part of the screen, but I still found it very annoying. And he says like that's just tier 1, so I think it makes sense to have like a movement speed debuff on tier 1, but it seems like if you start getting like tunnel vision, that seems to me that would be more of like a tier 2 or tier 3 sort of thing. But anyway, just minor comment on that. Amen Zone says they could just put a debuff icon instead of the whole screen. they do actually, like, over each of their heads there was like a little blue icon that noted the debuff. So like I don't think that I'm not sure that the frost effect was notifying you that you were under the effects of a climate. Like I almost took it as that is like part of the penalty, that you then have just a limited amount of visibility, like you just can't see what's ever on the edge of your screen. And that's actually kind of more of a penalty than I originally imagined it to be. So, you know, yeah, maybe, you know, once you start getting into like tier 3 or something, you, like I said, your like vision starts getting blurry. That could be cool, but you know, certainly more of a severe higher tier effect. Logan says creates immersion as well. Yeah, I agree. But like I said, it kind of, it has the potential to create immersion if you're really you know, start playing with visibility. Like that's, you know, that's one of the most powerful senses, and so if you start manipulating that, then yeah, you can really create a whole different sensory experience. But just like I don't, if really the only other penalty you have is a speed buff, like a minor speed buff penalty, it seems a little disjointed. But again, I'm not going to get like too deep into it because I know it's still something that will be tweaked. So I'm not too worried about it. Just figured I'd comment on it. Goofy Warrior Guy says people with bigger monitors have natural acclimation. Yeah, I don't know how that works. Maybe if your resolution just get like 4K, like, meh, no big deal. Ultimike says that's something that actually happens in extreme cold. I believe that. I can imagine that. I've never experienced that personally. He says, I also wonder if cold gear would reduce the screen effect. It would be cool if it did. From what I've seen, like they've been using that screen effect for a long time, like in trailers for years now. So I still actually think it's probably like more of a placeholder thing. And I think it's more of just like an on or off. I'm guessing it's an asset that they didn't even create themselves, so they don't have that much control over it. Again, moving forward, because this is pre-alpha, I'm not like nitpicking it too much. Maybe in the future, if they do create their own effect, it can be something that starts very, very minor, just a very minor blurring, and they have you know, they can control the intensity of it more and the area that it covers, so it like kind of gradually scales as you get higher up in tiers of cold climates. I think that would make that would be a lot cooler, pun intended, than just kind of like an on-off switch. But anyway, oh, that was the other thing from that stream that I wanted to comment on, that Sacred was talking about, how, you know, they're really putting a lot of care into kind of using context clues in just the environment and the zones to really give players a better idea of the difficulty of the mobs that they'll be encountering, because difficulty is such an important part of Pantheon, and that's great, and I agree. But every time it comes up, I always bring it back to that little number next to the NPC's name or health bar that says exactly what level it is. And because we've been told that's not just like a dev feature, that is an intentionally designed UI element. And it seems counterintuitive to me to be talking about like you know, incorporating context clues to give you an idea of how difficult a mob will be, when there literally is just a number next to their health bar that, you know, you can see it from a distance. You don't even need to get within a dangerous distance of that mob to decide whether or not you're going to engage it. And it's the sort of thing where it's just less risky. Like there's less danger in the world if you know that something is way higher than you and it's going to kill you. So why bother? You just don't even approach it, and then you come back later when you know that you can kill it. And there's less of that trial and error and the little bit of suspense where it's like, you kind of know roughly what range it is, but you don't know exactly. And it could be fine or it could go bad. So I think that, there's definitely such thing as too much information, and I think giving players the exact level of the mobs is too much information. It allows for too easy of decisions. But yeah, it seems like you guys are in agreement with me on that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have from that stream. I guess the only other thing, now that that's the last major newsletter of the year, I would, moving into the new year, one thing that I would like to see, and I would remind them that they still owe us an announcement that Brendyn had hinted in a round table a few years ago about something that had to do with their investors and their financial status. Again, like I think they've made a lot of a ton of really important progress this year. I don't want to understate that, and I'm really looking forward to the new year. I just think as we do move into that new calendar year, I think it would be a good idea for them to kick it off by talking more about what they were hinting at. Now, like, the more I think about it, I'm pretty sure that it has to do with this, where is it? Where is it? Oh, here it is. So when they revamped the website, which was also a couple months ago, the keen-eyed observer will notice this new person, Chris Cronenthal, on their board of directors, who was not there before. And I'm guessing that has to do with what they were going to announce. But I would love for them to go into more detail about that, because I think that's a pretty big deal. So yeah, I just figured I'd put that out there in case devs watching. I think that's again, we were promised that announcement, and that's overdue. So I think that would be a great way to kick off the new year. But like I said, in the meantime, only other thing I would actually remind you guys of, that I'm going to be on the Voices of Terminus show on December 12th. So I think this will be pretty much the last live stream that I will have on this channel for this year. Now, I'll be on YouTube, of course. In fact, I have plans for a pretty cool video that I'm going to be releasing before the end of this month for sure. That would be kind of a good way to cap off the year. But so you'll find me there, but you'll also find me live on the Voices of Terminus show on December 12th at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be doing kind of a recap. It's going to be me and a bunch of other content creators in the community and stuff. We're all just going to get together and hang out, but really do a recap of all that Pantheon has done this year, all like the major events that happened this year and the progress that they've made, the ups and the downs. We're going to go through it all. It's been a couple years since we've done one of these. I always really enjoy doing it because, especially this year, it's been a crazy year, and there's always things that we might have forgotten that even happened this year, but did, and all played a major part in the development progress that they've made. So I was like going back, doing my research. I'm writing up the timeline for it, not the timeline, the outline for it already to make sure that we hit all the important stuff along the way. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope to see you guys there as well, because I think that's just a really nice way we can to kind of end the year. I'm sure that the devs will be taking a little bit of a break, hopefully to take some time for themselves, be with their families and such. I think that VOT was going to try to get at least 1 or 2 devs maybe to join us on that show. I can't promise that. It's not my show, but we'll be there, and it's again, it's just such a blast to hang out with and just kind of reflect on everything that Pantheon has been through this year. And it has been a lot, but I think that kind of gives us a good perspective as we move into 2021 and see what this year is going to bring. It's always such an amazing journey every year. So we got that to look forward to. Again, I don't plan on doing any more live streams on this channel, but I will see you around the community, no doubt, and on YouTube as well. But other than that, I'm going to go get some much needed sleep. So until then, folks, and have a safe and happy holiday wherever you're celebrating, whatever you're celebrating. I really appreciate you all. You are what keep me here for this amazing Pantheon journey that we're all on together. So thank you, and have a good night.